Hello and welcome to Your New Jersey. I'm Lisa Marie Falbo. On today's show, we'll learn about America's Grow-A-Row, a Pittstown nonprofit organization that donates over 2 million pounds of fresh produce annually to area food banks. We'll also learn how to be your most resilient self with Flanders counselor and educator Diane Lang. But first, the New Jersey Harm Reduction Coalition promotes the safety and dignity of people who use drugs. Joining us now to talk about the mission of the organization is Caitlin O'Neill, a founding member and director of Harm Reduction Services of NJHRC. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Caitlin, please explain the mission of New Jersey Harm Reduction Coalition.
Sure. So our mission is really to create a New Jersey that values the safety and dignity of every human being and every person who uses drugs, and to make harm reduction, which is an evidence-informed public health strategy, to make harm reduction widely available to every person in our state, which it currently is not.
So what is harm reduction?
That's a great question. So harm reduction is, it's a couple of things. It's a public health approach to substance use and substance use disorder. So it's an approach that is based not so much with abstinence as the overall goal, but the overall goal of safety so that people can make their next most informed decision. And harm reduction is also a social movement that is about undoing the harms of the drug war and creating equitable environments where no matter what somebody chooses to do with their own body, they can stay alive and have access to healthcare and resources to thrive.
How do you provide that access?
So we provide that in several ways in New Jersey. We have harm reduction centers, and a harm reduction center includes several services. So it's somewhere where people can go to access the overdose reversal medication, naloxone, which is sometimes known by its brand name Narcan. People can go and get that for free and be educated on how to use that in the event that one of their friends or community members is experiencing an overdose. They can access new and sterile syringes. So if someone is injecting drugs, access to new and sterile syringes prevents HIV and skin infections and endocarditis and a multitude of other harms. They can also access testing for HIV and hepatitis C. They can access healthcare, wound care, community care. There's counselors and case managers.
You know, it's just so interesting because when you think of getting off of drugs, you think stopping cold turkey, going to rehab, but this is, I guess, a unique, different approach that you're finding a lot of success with.
Yeah, so it's actually been implemented in many other states for the past 20 and 30 years, and we're a little bit behind in New Jersey. So New Jersey has 7 harm reduction centers right now, serving 9.5 million people in 500 plus municipalities. So in comparison, a state like Kentucky, which has been implementing harm reduction for the past 10, 15 years or so, has a little over 60 harm reduction centers, at least one in every county, with options for mobile access and things like that. So we know that New Jersey can catch up. And the reason that there's a little bit of a difference now, so 10, 15 years ago, before fentanyl really was entering our street drug supply, people had a little bit of wiggle room to do so-called like tough love, let's say, and wait for that person. I don't believe in rock bottoms, but it's a traditional thing where a lot of people say they wait to hit rock bottom. But right now with the state of our street drug supply, people don't have that kind of time. We're talking about saving lives first, and then people can make the decision what comes next.
Well, one of the themes of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns was the rising case of overdoses. Talk to me about what you've seen with that.
Yeah, so we're at a place in the country where we saw over 100,000 overdose deaths last year across the nation, which is more than ever in history. There's a statistic that approximately 1 in every 2 people in the United States has a connection to someone who has died from an overdose. 1 in 2 people, which is staggering when you think about it.
Yeah, those stats that you just gave are absolutely heartbreaking. How did you have to pivot your services to accommodate lockdowns and the COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. So we began offering mail-based harm reduction services, which right now is just naloxone, which is the medication that reverses an opioid overdose. And New Jersey Harm Reduction Coalition, we run a statewide mailing program where people can call our or text, which is sometimes a little easier. They can call or text our confidential phone line, which is 1-877-4-NARCAN. And we have volunteers covering the phone line who will ask if somebody wants supplies sent to their house. We'll send them an overdose reversal kit that will allow them to keep whoever they need to keep safe, whether it's themselves, their family members. And we also offer online trainings. So we had to switch from in-person trainings to Zoom-based naloxone trainings. So there's been some hurdles to reach people, and we know that isolation has increased substance use, and that the overall feelings of despair that many people feel and have felt during the pandemic has also led to a rise nationally in substance use.
Well, that's so great that you were able to implement a plan, a successful plan to help people that were locked down. So finally, Caitlin, you're one of the founding members of NJHRC. Talk to us about your passion for this particular sector.
Yeah, so one of the ways that I know that harm reduction works is that that's part of my story. I am a person in recovery, a person who uses drugs, a former injection drug user. And I did have access to a syringe service program in the Harm Reduction Center at NJCRI in Newark towards the end of my injection drug use. And I didn't really know what it was at the time, right? I didn't know the philosophy of harm reduction. I just knew that there was a place that I, at the time, needed new syringes because I was experiencing skin infections. I was at risk of contracting hepatitis C from people I was using with. So I went there because they had this thing that in the moment it was what I needed. And I didn't realize walking in the door that I'd be greeted with really friendly faces and offered, this buffet of options depending on what I wanted that day. And so I began having access to HIV testing, which is so important. I began having access to a case manager, which, are things I didn't have, and things that people without access to harm reduction centers, we don't have that. And in 2019, we saw overdoses rising in New Jersey at unprecedented rates. We realized that the state of New Jersey offered 1 day of free naloxone that was in pharmacies, and you could access it with no strings attached. And we thought, what if there were more than 1 day? What if we made this amazing medication that saves lives and reverses overdoses? What if we found a way to make this available to everyone? Because we know that when people who use drugs have access to naloxone, they use it and they save each other's lives. So it started from there. It started as a way to honor the people that I love who are no longer here, who didn't have access to those services, and a way to make sure that people who are living on the margins and might have nobody else in their life telling them that they're worth it and that they have value, we remind people that you have dignity no matter what decisions you make.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think it's really cool that you were able to take your experiences and channel it into such a positive thing. So, Caitlin, once again, thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
America's Grow a Row received a grant of $100,000 from Bayer Fund, a philanthropic arm of Bayer in the United States, which will be used to increase access to nourishing fresh produce for people who are struggling with food insecurity in New Jersey and the surrounding region. Here to tell us all about it is President and Founder Chip Paillex. Chip, congratulations on receiving such an amazing grant. But before we get into your plans on how you're utilizing that gift, please tell us all about your mission.
Sure, and thanks for having me, Lisa Marie. So our program is very simple. It's where we have our volunteers, usually around 9,000 volunteers a year that come out to help us to harvest and distribute produce to food banks, food pantries, soup kitchens, hunger relief agencies all throughout the state of New Jersey and beyond. At the end of the day, the folks who receive food through food pantries and such in the past were really getting boxed and canned food to help kind of bridge them during that difficult period. But the longer that folks are on, these systems and programs to help folks who are faced with food insecurity, meaning they don't know where the next meal is coming from. We really have to integrate healthy foods. And a lot of the folks that we work with and we support and our clients, they basically really need to have not just box food, but healthy produce. And so that's our mission. It's not just getting food out, but healthy food to those folks throughout this entire area who might never not even had a healthy fresh produce before. But when you're dealing with diabetes and other health related issues, it's critical that they have fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's our mission throughout the course of the year, is to get as much produce out to those folks who need it the most.
So tell us all about your farm.
So right now we've got 430 acres. It straddles 4 different farms. And through that, we have 3 orchards, and we're able to produce over 2.4 million pounds of produce, or 9.6 million servings last year alone, again, for those faced with food insecurity. We also have a high-end teaching kitchen where we have an executive chef who teaches the folks that we serve from underserved areas where their food comes from, how to eat healthy, and then come out to the farm. And this includes kids too, where kids from low-income areas, come out and they're able to harvest produce, bring it into the kitchen, prepare the food, bring it back to their communities in need, and really be part of the program to help their neighbors who might be struggling.
That is so cool that you do that. I mean, to have the kids, I guess, what do? You bus them and you work together with the towns to get them out there?
Yes, and that's a great part of the program is we host folks out here. So we pay for the bus, we pay for the food, we pay for, the bags, the whole experience. But when they come out, like I said, it's the first time many folks have stepped on a farm, and kids alone. And it's such an incredible experience to see a child grab an ear of corn off the stalk and just start eating it with the juice dripping down their chin, or grabbing a peach off of a tree and eating it. So it's all about experience. And this program really isn't about the pounds, though we're proud of it. It's really about the people and impacting people, not just those that we're serving, but also the volunteers that come out. It's most likely their first time on a farm, and maybe even giving back. So Grow Row clearly isn't just about tonnage. And of course it's about servings, making sure we're feeding people, but really it's making sure that we're impacting every single life who touches and walks on this farm or receives the food that we give, or the education as well.
So before you mentioned corn, you mentioned peaches. What else are you growing?
So we also have apples, nectarines, which kind of rounds out our orchard. And then within our traditional vegetable crops, we have cabbage and broccoli, cauliflower, tomatoes, peppers, string beans. We have potatoes, sweet potatoes, on and on it goes. Winter squash. It's a pretty deep list, but we cover virtually everything that can be planted and harvested based on our climate here.
What do you do in the wintertime?
So the program is all year, and the education process continues, whether it's virtual right now, given COVID, but normally we would be out in classrooms in Jersey City or East Orange or wherever, and basically educating from January through May, again, teaching youth about where their food comes from, different topics, allowing them to cook and prepare foods. That runs basically for the first half of the year. And then the second half is where we're primarily in the fields. But also, consistent throughout the entire season is our gleaning program, where we go to some supermarkets, rescue produce that might be on the edge in terms of the sell-by date, but still has several days worth in terms of the use-by. We bring that produce all year long to the agencies so they can use it as opposed to having it go to waste. And then, of course, our farm team's busy all year long. If they're not in the fields, they're repairing equipment and such. It's pretty busy around here, regardless of the weather and the season.
Well, I mentioned earlier that you just received a $100,000 grant. Tell us all about that and how you plan to use the gift.
Yeah, we're so fortunate. The Bear Fund has been so supportive over the last 8 years. Bear, the company, they've been coming out and volunteering since 2016. And that's really how this program works. So the funds are basically going to help cover, several different expenses tied into farming, whether it's our packaging, like our bins, boxes, and pallets. It could be fuel, it could be repairs and maintenance, plants, seeds, all those costs that go into supporting around 1.1 million pounds of produce, or 4.4 million servings, just based on their donation alone. Again, this year we're looking to donate 2.5 million pounds this year, which was really up 60% versus our traditional growth. So we're very grateful to Bear for helping us reach these incremental goals.
Yeah, well, I think with the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's impacted, especially those inner cities, it's so important that you're able to do that.
It's touched every area, it really has. And the volume growth that we've been targeting mirrors what the food banks are experiencing in terms of their need. So we're trying to match that need. Again, we support produce across food banks, across the Mid-Atlantic region. And we've gone as far out as to Texas and also Kentucky this year.
Oh, wow.
There's great demand for our produce. It's grade A, top quality. And we want whoever's getting produce for the first time in their lives, perhaps, who's struggling, trying to make ends meet, we want it to be the best of the best. So yeah, we've got a great team here and really proud of what we do.
I have no doubt that you are delivering the best of the best. Before we wrap up here, I want to know your story because you founded America's Grow a Row.
Yeah, so I was actually working for a huge consumer product goods company, Unilever. I was relocated out to this beautiful area in Hunterdon County. And I wanted to start a daddy-daughter project with my then 4-year-old daughter, and I wanted to get involved in agriculture. So we started a garden. And right out of the gate, we had extra produce, didn't know what to do with it. So then I saw a 3-line article in the paper that said, if you have extra produce, bring it to the food pantry and grow a row for the hungry. And that's how the program started. But really, I wanted my daughter to eat healthy. And so, that was important to us. So I figured if we had her, plant, vegetable plants, she'd want to taste it. And then when the giving element, kind of popped along, reading that article from the paper, we had thought it would be a great opportunity for her to give as well. And that theme really is what's consistent today. It's about getting healthy food to those who need it. And it's also about, giving back, giving people the opportunity to volunteer. So very fortunate, God called us down this crazy path, this calling, and yeah, it's been a wonderful experience since. So.
Yeah, well, you are definitely utilizing that. Thank you so much, Chip, for joining us. Before we wrap, where can people go to learn more about you and how to support?
So very simply, you can hop on our website, americasgrowarow.org. If you're looking to volunteer, click the button. If you're looking to support us financially, click the button. Or if you're just looking for information to learn more, let us know. But yeah, we would love to have you come out, and we appreciate any support possible.
Oh, I definitely think a trip out there is in the cards. I know my family watching right now, they want to take the ride with me too, because we're all doing our own gardens. I think that's like the new thing now.
Absolutely. Well, I'll leave you with this, Lisa Marie. The media has helped us expose the program and get the word out. So I consider you all just as much a partner as anyone else. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to highlight our work and our mission.
Oh, it's beautiful work. We're so happy to do that. Thank you so much, Chip.
Thank you. Have a great day.
There is a lot of talk these days about the new normal. But according to counselor and educator Diane Lang, there is an opportunity to refocus and shift our lives. Joining us now is Diane. Diane, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me today.
So we are living in unprecedented times that are ever changing, but you think there's great opportunity for improvement. Tell us why.
So this has been a very crazy time for everybody for a variety of reasons. But the truth is, even though it's been a really tough time for everybody, there's always a silver lining. There's always some good in a bad situation. And it's being able to embrace change, knowing that change is the only constant, and taking action steps to move forward.
How do you tell your clients to do that?
So the first thing I always talk about is really thinking about feeling your emotions. We need to feel to heal. There's no way around it. And when we internalize our emotions, we push them down, we shove them, we avoid them, they're eventually going to come up. And that's not what we want to deal with. We want to be able to deal with those feelings immediately. whether it's stress, anxiety, grief, which, a lot of people are dealing with, whether you're grieving a loved one, which hopefully no one is, or you're grieving just losing your business, grieving losing the life you had. You need to feel those emotions. So first one is feel to heal.
I love that, feel to heal. I know you talk a lot about resiliency too, and how does that play into kind of refocusing and changing?
So to be resilient, we really need to think about noticing the good in a bad situation. So one of the things I have my clients do is gratitude. So gratitude is so important because gratitude does a few things. It's a positive emotion, which cultivates happiness, but it also cultivates mindfulness, which is the only natural way to de-stress. The other thing gratitude does is it retrains our brain to go from negative to positive. So at night, and I have my clients do it at night because at night is kind of when we have problems falling asleep and we feel the stress of our day. So at night, you have my clients do gratitude, which is just literally thinking to yourself, what are 2 to 3 things you're grateful for that happened today? Really thinking about your day and noticing the little gifts, blessings, and miracles, which is really important because when you notice them, it starts noticing the good instead of the bad. And you're able to retrain your brain to notice the little things that are good instead of focusing in on the bad, which is important because it allows us to realize we have control over where we put our attention and our focus.
Isn't it interesting that people kind of lose focus of that? Why do you think that is?
We all have what's called a negative bias. Everybody has it, it's genetic. And it's where we tend to lean towards the negative, notice the negative, and get stuck in the negative. By retraining our brain using like gratitude, we could start looking at the other side. And it takes some time. So if people do gratitude for about a month, they'll start noticing that they could see the good in a bad situation, or they could see purpose in a painful situation. And that's the beginning of building resiliency, which is what we're all trying to do in times like this.
Have you seen a lot of success in this training?
Yes, actually I have. Gratitude, and there's a lot of other tips and tools that we can use to retrain. But when we start doing that, I've actually had a lot of clients tell me within about 2 or 3 months, they really notice that they can see the good in a bad situation, and that is building their resiliency muscle. And it's important to know we can all build our resiliency. And knowing that every time you go through a tough situation and you work your way out of it, you're building resiliency. And that's important. It's a skill we can all work on.
And, not buying into those negative thoughts and emotions and feelings, because that, I guess, in turn will fuel more negative outcomes.
Yes, it will. And we don't want to fuel the negative. Not that the negative doesn't exist. There's always going to be stress. We can't live a stress-free life, but we want to be able to focus on the positive as well as knowing what the negative it is. So when we notice the negative, we can work on it, but we can stay focused on the positive, which gives us the momentum and the motivation to move forward. And when we develop positive emotions, we cultivate happiness. And the happier we are, the more resilient we are.
Just when you think things are opening back up and getting back to normal, we're hit with a new wave. So how do you keep your head above water?
So one of the things we want to do is have socialization. Socialization is the #1 factor of happiness across the board. So making sure, even if your socialization has changed, you're no longer seeing people in person, maybe, you don't feel safe, you have autoimmune, you still want to socialize. So making sure that you reach out to at least one person a day and making sure that you're checking in with others and really keeping that socialization going. Now, socialization includes having a support system, having community, and having fun. And we need all 3 of them to really keep our happiness levels up. So the more we socialize, the more we have unconditional support, which is important because unconditional means that people will be there. They won't abandon you. They won't reject you. And they'll be there. And that means that you'll feel comfortable enough to be authentic, to open, to disclose. And then we'll be able to feel those emotions and express them instead of internalizing. So really being social, leaning on your support, asking for help, really important, especially during tough times like this or any tough times that you're going through. Even when COVID's gone, hopefully soon, we always will have like a roller coaster ride of emotions and things going on. making sure you have that socialization, those positive emotions, that gratitude will help us through all tough times that come our way.
Yeah. And I also think that it's important to have that understanding for yourself, but also for others, because everyone has their own unique situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's important to respect other people's opinions and boundaries.
Yes, it really is an understanding that not everybody's going to think the way you do. And to have realistic expectations of other people, because a lot of times we get upset thinking that everybody will think like us, but they don't. And that's okay. It's respecting what they think, setting up those boundaries and limitations if it's causing issues, which we saw a lot during the holidays. Sometimes just removing certain topics from, from the conversation, no politics, no religion, no COVID talk, just removing it as a boundary enough. We're setting limitations where you know that this is not working and you close the conversation quickly before it goes into a heated argument or discussion.
I hope that this segment urges people to really find the beauty in this moment right now and make the changes that are needed.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for watching Your New Jersey. I'm Lisa Marie Falbo. We'll see you back here next week.